Sean Hucker. You know me as the founder of FinTech Plus, the CEO of Elliott Capital. I'm excited to be joined this week by another great FinTech company, ALLINDEX. And here to talk about the company, I have Christian Kronseder. Christian, I hope I said that right. After 10 years, I'm still working on my German here in Zurich. But welcome to the audience, and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, John, for having me. And by the way, it's very interesting. For English speakers, my last name is easier than for most Germans.
Ah, very good. Very good.
It's quite a wild thing.
Well, Christian, why don't we kick it off? Can you tell us who you are, and then we'll get into what ALLINDEX is all about. What's your background?
Sure. Okay. So I have a degree, a PhD in solid state chemistry. So I'm far off from anything finance. But I was somehow lured by colleagues of mine into the financial services industry 20 years plus back, and I didn't regret it ever since. So it was a very interesting journey so far.
Great. And so where were you, and what was the context of ALLINDEX getting started? What does the company do, I guess, first of all? Why don't you introduce us, and then we can give it some context.
Absolutely. So the idea is, and this stems back from my earlier part of the career. I used to be COO of stocks, and before that, I was in investment banking. I'm an equity derivative specialist. I also have a master's in mathematical finance from Oxford. While leaving investment banking, I got the opportunity to become COO of stocks, which is one of the big index providers worldwide. They own Euro stocks and the German DAX, a couple of others. And this is where, once I left, I realized, so there's something which can be done. It is not as client-centric as a lot of other financial services sectors. It doesn't rely so much on technology. Digitalization is not really there. And so I decided that I would like to start a company that helps from a technology point of view. Everyone who's interested in indexing and creating also investment strategies, that we provide a piece of technology that can be used very easily, from someone who's not so deep into indexing and investment strategies down to the very technical people, which are more the quants of the world, who can use this tool as well. And this is where it all started.
Okay, and so maybe give us a little bit more of the inside story. How long ago did ALLINDEX get started, and how did you make the leap from being a CEO to an entrepreneur? That's quite a big jump.
It is quite a big jump. Let's start with this. So it was COO, not CEO.
Pardon me.
To set the record straight here. It is quite a jump, but I realized in hindsight that I've always been some sort of an entrepreneurial person, because I always like to move stuff and things within the organization I've been working. So while I was in investment banking, I've built the first non-Swiss structured products platform outside of Switzerland, which was for the former employer a huge success, and it taught me a couple of things, and that's why this is where we come to the platform of ALLINDEX. It taught me that if you use technology correctly and put the customer in focus of your platform, you can actually achieve an immense scalability in terms of throughput and output. Just to give an idea, so with my little platform, we had about 8 people all in all. So now moving into indices, I realized that it is a very archaic process of how it is sold. It's still people going with a sales folder to their clients, but it's also the inability to give clients access to the vast amount of know-how these index companies have, but also a lot of things about indices, which is also not shared with the index providers. And this is where I realized, let's build something, again, a platform which helps to foster these relationships where both sides can learn from each other by using a common platform. And that was some sort of the nucleus of this whole entrepreneurial jump the ship idea. And we founded the company, we established the company about 2 years ago.
Great. Maybe you can tell us, what has the last 2 years been like? Has there been competition emerging? Has it been a very independent space for you? What has it been like so far for the development up to this point?
Well, it used to be quite an independent space. 2 years ago, nobody was actually really thinking about this type of tools. You also have to consider that this part of financial services is, how can I say this, is very conservative. We've been the only game in town. We've seen now from my former employer stocks that they have brought out a selection tool. And we've seen from another startup based in Frankfurt, they're doing something similar, not exactly the same, which is great news for us, because it clearly tells us that we've somehow struck a chord with a couple of companies, and they want to emulate that. So that's good for us. It's good for the competition.
That's great to hear. So how have you looked at the next sort of few months of development? Is the company still working on its product? Are you raising capital? Are you building your client base? What's the real focus for you at the moment?
So
What
the
year?
real focus, so we have signed up now a big and good client for us. So this will bring us next year nice revenue. We are still interested in raising capital because we realize that the more money we have, the more we can scale. And now, since we see some competition happening here in the market, we of course like to stay abreast of everybody else. So this is some sort of a mix of everything. As a startup, you probably cannot really afford that you focus on one thing only. So we're looking for capital. We're looking, of course, for more clients, and the product already exists. So it's now a question of build out the product. So we have an MVP that works. It actually works on a daily basis. We are calculating for our client an index on a daily basis. So it is stable and it does what it should do.
That's excellent. And so are you still actively raising capital? Is there a campaign on right now, or is that something that you're bootstrapping as a company? It sounds like with a client you could afford to go either way.
We could do either way. The reason why we're looking for capital is actually not so much that we really need the money, but it's more like we're looking for a strategic investor, somebody who's well known in the passive investment space, like in ETF space or investment strategy space. And we have an ongoing discussion, which I can't tell too much. Mm-hmm. But my hope is that before Christmas, i.e. on Friday, we can actually close a deal with quite well-known people from the passive investment space. And hopefully we can bring out the press release in the new year.
That would be great timing with when we'll share the video. So I wish you all the best with that, and understand the discretion. Well, it sounds like it's a very dynamic time. I mean, I'm going through a lot of questions here, and I don't want to use up too much of the time we have to dive into things that are evolving quickly. Is there anything else that you'd like people to really understand about ALLINDEX before we actually show the platform and how it works?
I think what's interesting, this is what we learned over the last 24 months or 18 months since we market the product actively, and we had quite a number of meetings where I stopped counting at about 300. Is that we suddenly realized, well, this is not only a product for investment banks and for asset managers, but this is also a product that media companies can use. So anybody who does data-driven journalism in finance can actually use this tool to create indices on the fly and then create news stories out of it. And the other side is that this might be an interesting tool also for multilateral trading facilities. And the tool as such is hosted on Amazon, and we're providing a software as a service business model. So that's the idea. If clients would want to have this on their own premises, we can do this too. So the system is not fixed to a certain type of environment. But of course, we would prefer to have this as a SaaS play going forward. So now imagine you're an index administrator. So you're an index company like MSCI or S&P. So this is what you would show to your clients, what you see here. Of course, there's a list of your own benchmark indices. We have a couple of them built for us. This is, by the way, a number of indices we used on machine learning to build very, very exciting healthcare indices. That's a section where you create your own indices and see your own indices, and nobody else can see that. And this is one of the two most important screens we have here. So this one is to give you a chance to build an index by point and click. So you don't have to be a super expert in creating indices. And the way this usually works is a three-step process. So you select the universe of the securities you would like to introduce in the index. Then you filter this, and we can add a number of filters here. So we have market cap, volatility, ESG type of factors, and then certain parameters. In the essence of time, I'm just populating this with an existing index, which is a very neat feature, I think, because you can take existing indices and tweak them to where you want to be. So we use Germany as the universe. We select by market cap and momentum, which is one of the risk premia or smart beta factors, as they're known in ETF space. And then there's further parameters which we don't have to go through, but the important one is, so we start the index at 1000 and then submit it for calculation. We create 3 indices in one go. A gross return that's without dividends, a total return that's with the dividends reinvested, and a net total return which contains dividends without the tax. It takes about 30 seconds to do. We will increase the speed once we have more revenue. We can then spin up more CPU instances on Amazon. Right now it runs on 1 CPU, as I just said. The idea is that we have an instantaneous result in this thing, because it just keeps the workflow going. One of the problems I've seen while at stocks is that backtesting can take 15 to 30 minutes. And I think this is not really good for the workflow in order to maintain a high quality output. So that's why I think it's a good practice to have this done. 10 more seconds and we should be there. The output is going to be very simple. We're going to see return statistics. We're going to see a chart, of course, of the backtest. It still takes longer than I thought. And then we have more outputs such as universe, the baskets for everything. So just to give you a bit index theory, indices are rebalanced every 3 months. And the basket change, here we go. And the baskets might change every 3 months. So that's why it is important to see. So you see here the return statistics, the returns in percentage, volatility, Sharpe ratio. You can also see a chart. You can remove those ones you don't like to see. Remember, we had 3 indices. And we, of course, give you the ability to look at the entire universe. We give you the baskets. So as I said, every 3 months, the composition of those indices is checked. So if I sort by date, then you're going to see different indices, different compositions. And you can have everything in Excel. If you don't like Excel, we also build you a direct pipe into your database. So assuming you have done this really well, then of course you can do a couple of things. So let's take this index here. We can create a fact sheet in 3 languages. Germany index, which is created on the fly. Oops, error. We can create fact sheets. Let's try this here. On the fly. You can put in some narrative that describes the index, but what it does, essentially, it creates all the parameters you had. You get a graphics with the backtesting, you get the statistics, you get a display of the sectors and the weights of those various sectors, and of course, the country, in this case, it's France, and the 10 biggest holdings in this whole thing. And you also see, very interestingly, there's a cap of 10% for individual stocks. So no stock can have more than 10% weight. We can reconfigure this fact sheet to the corporate identity of our clients. It is actually, I think we're one of 2 companies worldwide who can do fact sheets on the fly, believe it or not.
Not too shabby.
For indices, yeah, fact sheets for indices are created on a quarterly basis. And that's it. That's all you get from the index providers at the moment.
Wow. That's a competitive advantage.
Absolutely. I would totally agree with you. And even more, so you can also share the results with your coworkers. So you can say, okay, I'd like to see, Chris, what I've done today. You can do this with clients. You can do this with salespeople, whoever want to do this. And it's shared and it's done. So the person now logging in, index shared successfully. Chris is logging in, so he can access this one and then talk to his clients, see the same fact sheet, and share. And that's a feature which we found quite interesting for everyone, because today it's some sort of bit, okay, here's my spreadsheet and I send it over to you and you don't have the context. Now here you have everything, because once then Chris goes to it, he can see the values, for instance, so the backtesting of this whole thing. But he can also go back to the index wizard and say, okay, actually, I'd like to see all the parameters. Now I have to find it. That's the one. Everything's populated, and then he can start playing around with it and make his own index version, and then also share it with somebody else. Now, I said in the beginning, we also have an offer for the more technical people, basically the quants. And this is where we have, I think, built something which is really, really interesting. It is an editor. Basically, it's a software development kit we've created where you can not only create indices, but for instance, also create trading strategies. And it's in Python, so you can actually code in Python. So we've built a Python editor, which allows you to do basically everything you would like to do. So you can either draw data from the database we have, or you take external data. So in that case, we're offering the ability to draw end-of-day data for the DAX index from a different data provider. You can keep it. You can then run it. It goes quite fast. And it's a trading strategy. What it does while it's calculating is if the open of today's DAX is higher than the max the day before, you invest into the DAX index. You get a printout here on the lower left on the profits, on the average profit per trade. But you can also, let me move you around here. You can also display a chart of the cumulative profits you've made. And if this is not enough, if you like your model, you can also share the model with your coworkers in two different ways. Either read access only, so they can't change the model, which is from a compliance point of view quite cool, because once everybody agrees on a model, you can freeze the model. Or while you're there, you can say, okay, well, actually, staying with Chris, I'd like to co-develop with Chris this model. And then you can do co-developing. And once everybody's happy, you take away the right access from Chris, say, I share with you, and the model is fixed and everybody's fine. So by that, you can, and I said in the beginning, you can benefit from each other's know-how from the client side, but also from the index provider side, and build better indices going forward. And of course, just as a quick one, we can of course do indices there as well. We provide you with a number of models which everybody can use going forward, and that's basically the core of the offering we have here. We are thinking about adding new languages instead of Python. We're thinking about R, because the setup allows it to do other languages as well. And then we have done a few things for our daily calculation. I can upload CSV files. I can offer backtest services for people who, or for clients who are not willing to share what they've done. They can send their compositions of the index and we do the backtesting for them and send it back to them. So that also works quite well. That's the tool. So it's as simple as that. The learning curve is, I think, not really steep. So everybody who knows what indices are can work with this within 20, 30 minutes and create results.
I was going to say, for something that's a new solution, it does a great job of providing both the average user and the advanced user what they're looking for. And as you say, it's stock data and indices. So once you have that ability and that flexibility, the power is in the flexibility. The data is what you need to unlock, right?
Exactly.
I'm curious, to what extent, just as I was walking through this, especially with the quant demonstration, to what extent do you see topics like ESG coming through in the clients and the ways that they're using your tool? Is that something that you address?
Yes, we do. And I think I've shown this earlier. So in the wizard, you can actually select by ESG data.
Okay.
We've seen quite an interesting development when we talk to potential clients in Asia and Southeast Asia. The interest, and also France, the interest on ESG is very, very high. And the way we've built the tool is that you can bring your own ESG data. So you don't have to rely on our ESG selection or ESG providers. So if you have your own model and your own database, you can actually add it. Let me quickly show this how this would work.
And I guess that addresses, I understand there's a lot of standards and different data sources, and it can
exactly
be right. So you allow you to set their own filters.
And that's very important. So we have, as you can see here, there's a ESG and a carbon footprint. So that was given to us by a friendly client, soon to be client. And the way you can do this is you can actually select, we have some sort of a number of pricing sources available. So you can add an infinite number of data sources to the tool, which only belong to you as the user and not to us. And that makes it, of course, from a data point of view, super flexible. Yep. And you can use data which nobody else has and the tool which nobody else has. So it gives you a nice advantage over the rest of the markets.
That's great. That's great. Well, Christian, I want to learn more about it. Actually, I want to play around with it. Is there an opportunity for people who are interested? What's the best way to find out if somebody's interested in becoming a client of ALLINDEX? Is there a trial? Should they contact you via the website?
You can contact us via the website. You can also contact me directly. Email address is very easy. It's ck@allindex.com. You can also distribute it to client. Usually what we do is we give a certain part of the client's demo access. For other clients, it's very, very important to see how accurately it calculates. So if you talk to exchanges, they're not so much interested in the UI and UX part of the tool, but for them, it's really, really key how precise is the calculation. And we've done this now twice, and we hit it 100% in terms of preciseness. And for everybody else, they can play around with the data we have in the database in the demo account.
Yeah. So Christian, thank you for sharing all that. I especially enjoyed getting the demo, but as you mentioned, there's a lot developing, and there could be some news about the company later this week. So we'll be staying tuned and sharing that with our audience through FinTech Plus. Yeah. Any last words, or should folks reach out to you via your website to learn more about the company?
Yeah. Go to the website. That's all we have, and yeah, fingers crossed that we can close the deal by the end of the week, and then everybody has a Merry Christmas, I would say.
Great. Well, yeah. Also, happy holidays to you, Christian. Thanks for the time today.
Thank you.
And,
well, thanks, John, for having me. Good stuff. Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye bye.